All right. Hello to everybody that's tuning in tonight with us and the Coach's Corner. We have some wonderful people as always. Hello, gentlemen, as you are all getting settled. How is everyone?
Good.
Excellent.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you all and our special guest. So I am going to say a couple words and pass this off and disappear so you guys can get to the good stuff. So for everybody that is tuning in, feel free to ask questions. Just pop them into the chat box. I will be keeping an eye on it. I will pass the questions off and we'll try to get to everything. That's not always possible, but do ask as much as you would like. And that's all I have to say. So with that, I'm going to pass this off to you, Your Grace, Duke Sven.
Which one?
Yeah.
Can't say Your Grace without hitting a dead cat. Hey, welcome everyone to the Coach's Corner. We're happy to have you as always. Tonight we're honored to have for our conversation Duke Sven from the Kingdom of Ansteorra. He is often referred to as Two-Stick Sven of all the Duke Svens that are out there. He came to us to the SCA from foam fighting in Amsteorra, and we're really happy to have him. I've been working with him for a long time, and we've been training each other for a long time now, and it's just really great. Always just talking the stick and hearing his thoughts on training methodology and how to make our sport better in general. So Your Grace, Sven, welcome. Thanks for joining us. If you'd like to say a couple words about yourself.
Thanks for having me. I like, as His Grace said, I did Amsteorra for many years before I came to the SCA. I guess this is my 11th year now, 6th year as a Duke. I met you, I guess I've been playing 3 years then. When
it's Penzic 2012.
Yeah, maybe you're right at that 2 to 3 year mark. I met Brannos at my first Gulf Wars where you guys had fun beating us up, but that was super fun. But I'm super glad to be here and give you a different approach because it's pretty well known at this point. I'm mainly specialized in two-sword fighting. Not the most popular style in the SCA, but definitely can be fun.
All right. So I guess we got a great episode, and I'm looking forward to it. I always look forward to talking to Sven anyways. We get the chance to hang out a lot. We've from the first year to kind of even just last year when we were at Candleman. So we got a chance to hang out and talk stuff. And I guess the best part is that everybody gets to hear that talk today and get some insight. I don't know if anybody, hopefully some people have Sven as part of their group and they get to see some of his posts come up. He has a great training facility in his backyard, and he has a really good fundamental idea how to train people. So I'm hoping that you all get really some good insight here around some other options of training too, because he doesn't fall into necessarily that place where it's like, hey, let's go out and do bear pit and run it until we learn something. So he comes from a really base form of let's train first and then fight later. So I guess my first question is, back in your foam group, did you actually train the same way? The folks there, or
very similar. The main difference between the two games is the weapons don't hurt. So when you get an idea or something that you want to work on, the padded weapons give you an opportunity to do more repetition. You obviously talk about it and you come up with your plans, but you can just do it over and over and over again. And with people watching, you having your critique, it's a lot easier to get several 100,000 reps in, and then just kind of work on stuff. It makes it easier to take stuff from your practice and work it into your routine because it's less painful and it's easier to see as far as repetition goes. It's just high reps. That's the main difference between the two. And when I brought that high rep style over here, I had to focus more on the intro and more of the training and less of the fighting. And it also has to do with a lot of my guys who come over with me and the guys we bring now are already very good fighters in other systems. And so they need more of the how to than the actual fighting. I mean, fighting is the last thing you should be doing realistically. There's my 2-year-old. Hey, buddy.
So I guess on that point, you guys still do a lot of foam in your practices as well.
Well, our practice contains no fighting. My traditional once a week practice, we don't fight at it. It's primarily pel practice and some foam practice. What we use the foam fighting for, somebody muted me. What we use the foam fighting for is like changing hand dominance for 2-sword, like working on your left hand versus your right hand. We'll do sword and dagger, or if somebody's working on sword and shield, it's just easier to do reps and to critique it, because what the primary purpose of being a good 2-sworder is you need good reading skills. You need good measure, and you need good ranging. And it's easier to learn that with faster, lighter weapons and with high repetition than it is to use the SCA weapons, because it's easier if you can learn it quickly, much like fencing or anything else that's super fast. You can do that and read and do those things. It's far easier to slow that measure down than it is to try to speed up. Like a lot of people who come for the SCA who are very good SCA fighters will not be good at high and foam fighting because of the weapon times are completely different. It's super, super, super fast by comparison.
So let me ask you a question there. So you said that when the foam fighters come over to SCA, you said that there's that the part that they already have and the part that they need to learn. It sounds like so we talk a lot about the why of what's going on in the fight. Is that the part you think that the foam fighters are missing a little bit more? Because it sounds like they have the how. I mean, they have the stick mechanics, they have the hand speed from hundreds of thousands of repetitions, but it sounds like you're saying that maybe they're missing out on that why a little bit.
Well, more of especially if they're really good at foam. More importantly, they need to slow their measure down. They need to slow their thinking down. They need to. There's a pace to the SCA. That when you press the pace and when you pull from the pace, and coming from other fighting games who have a faster pace, you have to learn the pace of the SCA. You have to not necessarily slow down to it, but you need to be aware of measure of shots. Like if I throw this, what's your timing back? It's not, you got to take away that quickness. And then in general, in most foam fighting games, your hands are too low for the SCA because most of them don't target the head. And then you square your shoulders more. It's small mechanical issues that you fix first, like how you adjust and how you move. And then I take what they're already good at and you constantly work on the things that they're not. It's like polishing that little rock, you work on those small things, and then as a whole you come up. But it's not necessarily why, you just got to expose them to the newer parts of the aspect of the game, because most of the guys, if you are successful at the faster games, you can already read well. Your measure is probably really good. You just need to learn how it's done here inside this system. And that's true for anything you go fight in. You got to do that first. And once you have an understanding of that, learning to fight off that is a lot easier once you kind of understand measure, pacing, and all the associated mental stuff that goes with it.
Yeah, I think what I've seen with the foam guys that come over on our side is you're 100% right. I mean, normally they have a relatively fast footwork game. They have good awareness, very fast awareness to stuff. They're a little bit more instinctual, and because they have to be so fast, they tend to pull away from shots. So I think a lot of times when you can slow that pace down for them, that shot becomes easier to throw harder, and all of those pieces that go into that, right? I mean, it's a little bit of that. I'm sure you find the same way.
Well, a lot of your draw ways, because most of the foam fighting games don't have a minimum force requirements. There are a few who do, but even then, they're anticipating too soon, and so they'll start to come back anticipating shots that are out of measure for this game. And so you really have to learn, if you're going to throw it, to stick it and then prepare for the next one. It's just a pacing issue, and it's not apparent until you're trying to use a much heavier stick. Most foam sticks are 8 to 16 ounces, depending on what game you play. And, an SCA sword is definitely much heavier than that, especially with a metal basket hilt. And so that, just picking your hands up in general, is what wears a lot of people down. That's why we spend a ton of time on basic frame and standing and stance, and prepping from that, because practice should be the hardest thing you do in the end all be all. Fighting's easy. That's what you want to do. But prepping for that, it's got a little time that goes along with it.
So what is it about the foam fighting and amp guard environment that seems to lend more naturally to sword fighting?
The lack of pain, honestly. It's like if you want to get good at two sword in the SCA, I think it's almost impossible to learn your basics in this sport without wearing a lot of protective equipment, and that by itself slows you down, and it makes a different type of fighter. And I think you need to learn without those negatives to trust yourself more, and so that you can be more mobile and not so heavily armored and move around and all that stuff. And it's just it's a good style. And even then, it's the sword shield's still the most popular. It's there you see sword shield, Madu, two sword. It's just more done over there, because over here, if you can't protect your left forearm and your left leg, you're just gonna be in pain all the time. That's no fun. And so to get to that stage is quite a bit of learning just for your basic, not to get juked out for a basic inside outside. And so that takes 6 months to a year. No one wants to take that kind of punishment with SCA sticks versus you do it with foam. It's no pain at all. We can do it over and over again and talk about the same thing, hand positioning, measure where you need to be, versus SCA sword. You crack somebody in the forearm a couple times, well, they're probably done fighting for a little bit.
Yeah, I would tend to agree 100%. And I think that's why we talk and do a lot of foam here myself, is because, too many people are concentrating on not being hit and not concentrating on what to do well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they get a rattan sword in their hand, and everything goes out the window. They're like, oh, I got to swing this thing, And there's a lot of cases where I'll grab guys. I'm like, here, you're going to use foam now. And they're like, and now all of a sudden they're like, well, it's not really a sword anymore to them, right? And then all of a sudden they're like, well, they don't care as much about hitting people hard, but actually doing stuff and doing the training and things like that. I've found that it's a great tool. Do you have any trouble, like, obviously, I love that you have guys that just go there and drill and work on stuff and have that martial artist environment. But there's the other side of it where a lot of these guys are like, they're just coming out to fight, right?
Well, if people come to my practice, the thing we have to be clear about is that we want to make sure that they're clear about what they're asking for. As people come to my practice, they ask, they come over, and we're very clear about our expectations. Like, this is not a fighting thing. This is for you to learn to fight. It is not exciting, because a lot of people are enamored with the idea of being a good fighter, but they don't understand the mindset, the mentality, and what goes into being a good fighter. They only see you at practice killing people. They don't understand all the stuff that goes behind it. So you got to tell them your expectations, general timelines of how long things take, what's expected in training, what you want people to learn who come over. Like, there's a whole laundry list of stuff that people need to be exposed to. And I skipped that a lot when I was newer in the SCA, or when I first come over, because I could do it. I figured other people could learn, but you have to be super clear with what they're coming over to learn, because otherwise they're going to show up and they're either not going to like it, or they're going to burn out, because it's a lot of time and repetition put in, and if they're not willing to do it from the get-go, don't bother showing up. It's what it is. I mean, if you pay for a martial art, you're going to go there, you're going to listen, you're going to learn. So we have that same approach. You're over here to learn, and you may do things that work, but so long as you're over at my house, you're going to do it my way, and then that's just the way it is.
No, and you're asking for it that way, right? So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, that's one of the really frustrating things that we get, when we people ask for help, and we say, well, you need to change this, or, you're doing this. And we get that answer is like, well, it works, doesn't it? Like, well, just because it worked that time against that guy. But that doesn't, one of the things that makes successful technique is it has to be repeatable, and it has to be repeatable against a broad audience. You have to be able to apply these techniques against anybody. And, when you get stuck in this thing, and, well, it works, didn't it? And, because, success feels good and it's addictive, feeds the same part of our brain as cocaine and cheese, and yeah, it works, didn't it? So let me ask you something else. So a lot of you, so we've been talking with the shutdown, with the COVID and everything going on, that, you know, we're not able to do practice, and it, and I've been seeing some people that have been doing that work for the last 6 months, have been doing the pellet work, been doing the footwork. And, you know, I'm thinking that there's never been a better time to learn our sport from the ground up than there has when we can't fight. And it sounds like your approach is very similar to that. I mean, I know for me, when I started doing pel work, you know, at like 12, 13 years old, I did pel work for a year and a half before I set foot on the fighting field. And there was so much, there was that thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of reps that I put into it, that by the time I actually got armor on, was able to do it, all of a sudden, like, there's so much of the body mechanic that I don't have to compete with. Like, I don't have to tell my body how to throw a shot because it's already there. And it sounds like you're kind of, that your model is in kind of in line with that. One of the things that I've experienced with this is that a lot of people don't want to do that. They don't want to do the work. They just want to get in the armor and just start fighting. So how do you convince people? I mean, because you've got plenty of these guys that have done it. And I know a lot of them come from AmpGuard, and it may be easy enough to say, hey, look, you got all that over here, but give me 6 months. But how do you take somebody, say, from scratch, just walking in off the street, and convince them that their best path to success is not necessarily getting an armor day one and just banging on it?
You have to have a culture of basics, right? A lot of people have this misconception about fighting, about what kills people is that it's an over application of basics. Like what will kill people is good timing, is good hand positioning, and a lot of basics. I mean, if you go box at a gym or you go to a jiu-jitsu class, like everybody has a basic setup, and in order to build on a success, you have to have basics all the time, every time, and you're going to practice them every time we come to practice, and it's until I think they're perfect, you know. And then there's always stuff to change. Injuries make stuff move differently. You practice that, but you just have to have a culture of it. And we've been doing this long enough. I've been fighting since I was 17. I'm 43 now, and I did it for a long time over there. I had a large fighting company inside AmpGuard, who our theory and the way we taught was heavily used and still taught in foam. And when we came over, that same group of guys came over, and you know, if you're invested and you learn from it and it shows success to other people, they will also. It's easier for them to get buy-in, right? It's not a one-off thing. It's something that it's been proven over the years to be a learnable, teachable thing. And if you can prove that something is teachable, it's a lot easier to sell it, especially if you have a curriculum set up for it. You know, it's not just random stuff like we do this, then we do this, then we do this, then we go back and we do this, and it's a building block. And when you make goals in smaller chunks for people that they can go through with the understanding that you're going to do this a lot, people that's small successes and those building blocks, people want to come back. It once they're onto it and they like doing it, they constantly come back to it. They get, once they buy in, once they drink the Kool-Aid, that success is self-feeding.
Well, and I think there's, you know, the big piece there is you've had a lot of pretty successful people coming out of your backyard. So, and out of the groups and the people that you recruited in, you know, you've done an incredible amount of work just trying to get other foam folks to recognize that, hey, we can all play together. I know you had the online groups that you helped develop and talk about this and kind of break that tension down, which is wonderful. You know, and I think you're 100% right. I think it's like, okay, we do it this way. If you want to do it a different way, there's another fight practice down the street. You don't have to come to mine. And sometimes you have to lay that rule down. I mean, that's just the way it works. If you come to me to train, there may be things that I recognize you can do better or can't do that I do. But, you know, I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, you know, I'm not much of the, oh, well, I can't do that kind of guy. It's like, you can't do that right now because you're not trying.
Well, if it was easy, everybody would do it. More importantly, they have to understand that you have to accept these building blocks until you get to a certain point. And when you're to a certain point, then we can break some rules, then we can twist some stuff, but you've got to understand what builds up to there. You can't start there. You have to get there to understand what you can do, what advantages it give you, what disadvantages it give you. And you just have to have a lot of buy-in on it. And people have to be accepting of how you get better at stuff. We use like running in track as an example, like sprinters and stuff like that. Just don't get out there and sprint a bunch to get better at sprinting yet. You spend a lot of your time working on getting out of the blocks or your first 2 steps or a transition from your third step to your fourth step, like when you stand up, how you would breathe in it. And it's all a bunch of little bitty pieces that get you tenths of a second, and it goes back to that polishing the stone. If you take the thing you're worst at, we work on it for a while till I feel like you're better at it. We move to this small little section over here, and it's if you could approach fighting with basics while constantly working on that stuff, people just get better. But it just takes time. It's not a fast process.
Yeah, and like I said, that's always been the hard part is finding that buy-in because, and again, this goes back to the fact that we've been training SCA combat in a certain way for 50 years, and I know Brannos and I are both trying to change how we teach it for exactly that reason that we're past the days of just put on the stuff and go out and figure it out. And I think your process and the process that I've been teaching for a long time now too, your focus is more on, like you said, isolating those deficiencies, eliminating those things, find out what's wrong with it and make those things better. But it can be a hard sell from day one, because I mean
100% hard to sell.
the big hook of our organization is hitting people with sticks. So somebody shows up day one, maybe we can put them in some loaner gear and give them a taste of it and hopefully get them hooked that way. But so many people just want
I tell people to go out and fight all they want. Like when they want to go do stuff, they want to go practice, that's fine. But when they're at this practice, we're going to do this way, because how they fight is what they're going to find to be fun. And you don't want to take the fun away from people, but if they want to be successful at it, they have to have an approach. You have to have a method. It just can't be randomly go fight at this guy's house and then randomly go fight at that guy's house. If you need almost like a career path, a structure. You're going to need to know what you're going for to build and go forward. Otherwise, you're just sparring, which is super fun, but not really the greatest way to get better at fighting. And the main takeaway I think we have is for as slow as I say it is with foam, it's still way faster to do all these reps with foam swords and this stuff than it is with SCA. It's just inherently less painful, easier to do reps, and and that process speeds it up. You can just do stuff over and over and over and over again. And the approach with basics and the mindset of I grind away a little at this and grind away a little bit of that, and then just get better. But it does take buy-in and it does take practice. But if people are martially minded who have practiced to get good at something else, or they play the guitar or anything else, you don't get out there and play songs. I played the guitar growing up, and the number one thing I did was run your chords and run your notes, working over and over and over again. Not that you learned a song first, but a lot of people do. Doesn't mean you play the guitar, it means you learned a song. But to get good, you have to be able to read music. You got to be able to do all the other things that goes with it. Learn sharp flat to be able to play the guitar, not just play a song. It's kind of the same deal.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece, is that it's those building blocks. I talk about layering exercise after exercise. That way you can kind of build into, you understand from beginning to end the time you get there, instead of, hey, here's what we're doing, and then they have to figure out how to get there, and they don't know everything to get there. They don't know where your hand is supposed to be positioned, how you're supposed to shift your weight, and all this other things. It's like, okay, throw this shot. It's like, well, there's a lot that goes to throwing that shot. I think the good part is that the big difference here is that not, and this is the part some people have a hard time swallowing, is that, hey, you're coming to my place. This is what you're going to get. This is what I'm teaching. I'm going to tell you, I tell people all the time that when they come to me and say, hey, can you show me? I'm like, I can absolutely teach you. I tell you, I am not a nice teacher. I will tell you when you're being an asshat. I'll tell you to go sit down if you're not doing something right over and over again, and think about it. And I will compliment you when you don't hit somebody, but at least you got the technique right.
Yeah, it's more about being sure you're not there to. I tell people I'm not there to make them feel good about themselves. I'm not there to lie to them. If they're there, they're going to get the truth, and a lot of times it's not a friendly truth, because you want to get good at something, but you got to want to practice to achieve getting good. You can't just want the end result. You got to want it in the middle. And I think when you get buy-in on that, all your guys have buy-in. Sean's guys have buy-in. It just takes cultivating that culture, and then it's self-sustaining once you can steady bring people in, because success helps bring people in, breeds more people.
I know my mindset on that too is very, very similar in that, you coming to me for help. I have very limited time, especially if I'm, when Al-Anon was on, we talked about, those temporary learners, or those short, when you get a training session with somebody at Ansteorra or Gulf Wars or Penzic, I get like 20 minutes with somebody. So I don't have a lot of time to screw around. If you want my help, I'm gonna tell you what I think is wrong, and I'm gonna tell you how to fix it. But we don't have a whole lot of time for stroking egos. One of the things I've always told my squires about that is, I never told you it was going to be easy, and I never even said that you were going to like it, but I said it would be worth it. And I think all my guys would agree that the time they put in and that kind of direct training methodology, and it's not, like you said, it's not designed to be cruel or mean to somebody or make myself feel good about myself. We're short on time, so let's make the most of the time that we do have.
Yeah. For short touches, like when you go to Ansteorra or Sport Kings, a lot of times it's not that I try to teach people, I'm trying to expose them to ideas, like an approach or a methodology or something like, hey, I see you're trying to do this. Like, man, have you thought of this? Or, hey, you should maybe go try to train with this guy. Like, because a lot of people, they get hung up into their way of doing things, or the kingdom's way of doing things, or the way they're taught. Sometimes they don't see that broad picture. And so a lot of times, you guys and people like you, I feel we do more with exposing people to what can be done, not necessarily a way to do it or even a method at it, but you get to see it, and people see it and it's something they like, they'll probably take the effort to seek you out again or come train with you and
Right.
move up,
Yeah, when we go to when Brannos and I go to our fighting clinic, I know when I'm there, I'm going to tell people there's only so much I can do in a weekend to fix all your problems. And I'm not trying to fix everything in a weekend. I'm trying to give you the tools that you need to be able to fix these problems on your own. It's that framework to work in. And these are the tools I use to evaluate. These are the tools that I use to do better at things.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's the big piece is there's a lot of difference. I think you're filling that role both as a trainer and a coach at yours. In other words, hey, this is what we're doing, and you can tell exactly each individual person that comes to your practice, and you can say, okay, here's where your strength is, here's where your weakness is. We're going to work on that weakness. Where when you go to train people, a lot of times you don't have that time. You have too many people in that class to really know every individual. So that coaching tends to take a second fiddle to stuff. Sometimes you can catch it here and there, but it really you can't dwell on one person and leave 20 people sitting in the class waiting for an answer, right? Or waiting for it to continue on.
And that's where your martial arts set up, your dojo set up. Like I have 7 bags in the back. We got the Wave Master XXL. We usually have 10 to 16 people come over, sometimes more, sometimes less. But I've got a lot of my senior students that come over, and we'll break people out with groups. Like you work with these guys on these 2 things, you work with these guys, and then everybody gets feedback, and then we'll rotate through. And it's run for me, the closer you run it to a martial arts setup for practice and repetition and how you rotate through, the easier it is to learn. It's easier for you to take it in pieces, and it helps your middle level guys and even your senior level guys. It helps them refine what they're doing, because we all know that having to teach something that you're doing to somebody else, what you're actually doing, not what you think you're doing, what you're actually doing to somebody else is one of the things you need to know to really, really hone in on stuff and get better at it. And so that just helps your class and your general knowledge all around. Because I find that if you're good at fighting and you can't teach it, it means you're probably not as good as you think you are. You probably kill a lot of people, probably do well. You may be tall, you may be fast, but without that understanding and the ability to convey ideas and approaches to people, you probably don't have you're going to have a gap in there that experienced fighters are going to see and just cut you down for it, and you not realize what's going on, because all this stuff works on all these other people, and you're super experienced fighters just ignore it because it doesn't mean anything to them. They're like, oh, I'm glad you're good at all those things. I want to fight none of that.
Well, and
Yeah,
I think
go ahead, Brannos.
I think you see that. I mean, we talk about a society that when we came in, you could have if you were athletic, you could beat some of the best people here and there, right? I mean, you would lose to the worst because there was no consistency. You're just throwing athletic behavior at somebody, you're throwing energy at somebody, and you're trying to get through. And in the past, that was good enough. If you're a good athlete, just normally you would be in the top brackets right away, right? And you could break stuff down. It's even more. But nowadays, it's like, hey, why is that 55-year-old guy still out there whipping everyone's ass? It's like or why is this 300-pound guy who's doesn't look in shape still kicking everyone's butt? It's because the key is these guys are really disciplined about what they do, and they'll go out and they understand, like Sean or Sven, what you're saying is they understand what they're doing and they can express what they're doing, and they can not only they understand what they're doing, and when they see others do it, they can take that in and learn from it and keep making their style better and better all the time. And when you're just athletic, that's very hard to do because you're just throwing more energy at it. Sooner or later, you run out of that energy, right?
Yes, you do.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago when we had the episode with Brannos and Tristan talking about teaching from a dojo perspective, they'd mentioned some concepts that I work with a lot, and what you're talking about is it's the difference between comprehension of our sport and application of our sport. You get that guy, like you said, he's out there killing a lot of people within a certain caliber, right? And that's something that Sagan talks about with that's why he talks about the top 2%. The type of fighter you're talking about that is doing their thing, and and again, it's that guy that says, well, it works, doesn't it? They're going to kill 90 to 95% with the stuff they're doing. But the people you want to be competing with are in that top 2%. Those are your world-class fighters. And it's that difference between that comprehension and that application. It's the understanding of the sport as opposed to just throwing stuff out there and getting kills.
Yeah. We as two sorters, my guys, we have a twofold problem, right? We fight an odd style that not a lot of people see, and it gives you we'll cut to what two sword is. The object of being really good at two sword is two sword has the peaks and valleys, right? Like you lose to people you shouldn't, you win to people you shouldn't. Your objective is to make those peaks and valleys as flat as possible, to make it as consistent as possible. As a good sword shield fighter fighting a sword shield fighter who is not as good will traditionally win, whereas a two sword fighter, there's a lot of variables, and so your objective is to take that out. And a lot of people are not exposed to what we teach, the approach to two sword, and it's apparent when you go fight people. If somebody has not fought against the way we fight two sword, it gives you a lot of early success, and so I have to temper my guys and other stuff to, while you're fighting these guys and you're killing them, try to help them understand what you're doing, because even here in Ansteorra, I've been here 11 years, and there's still only a handful of guys who are super good against fighting what we do, because you're just not exposed to it a lot, versus a lot of people who are exposed to good short shield guys all the time. And we as two sworders have an advantage because we fight shieldmen exclusively almost, and so we have a better Rolodex of what to do and what to fight against, and so we have a lot of opportunities for improvement to help teach, and it helps the guys to teach, because I tell people all the time, you don't grow or get anything as just killing somebody. So when you're done, you're fighting people, and you ask them, do they like us or anything they saw they want to work on or anything like that, try to tell them, like your arm, like your body. I can't tell you the amount of people that hold their arm out or don't bring the bottom edge of their shield over, and just basic stuff, because they're not exposed to a shield guy. This is what they fight a shield guy like, but they're not used to people who can hit them in the arm or hit them in the body, and vice versa. It's different.
Well, I know you encourage your guys to get out of Kingdom a lot too, and
Absolutely.
When when they're learning to fight against the standard Ansteorran shield convention, where people just, kind of hiding behind the big 2x3 shield, that kind of gets them into a certain mindset as to how sword and board fighters work and how you approach a sword and board fighter. But with you getting your guys out a little bit more, you get exposed to, I fought 3 or 4 of your guys at Adult Swim last year. And, I approach, I'm nothing like the sword and board fighters you're going to see down in Ansteorra.
Yeah, well, you saw how much you saw that Ozar and all those guys. We spend a lot of time making our guys fight sword and shield. We generally try to either warm up left or right-handed, depending on who's at practice, and we fight 2 sword in the middle of practice, and you cool down. I usually cool down right-handed because when you have a bunch of 2 sword in practice, nobody wants to fight all the 2 sword guys. Like, you need to get out there and fight the other styles. It helps your individual hands learn and gives you a little insight on what you can and can't do, and it helps your stamina and conditioning overall. But because 2-sworded practice is as we talk about SCA, when you're fighting it all the time, it can be unpleasant. So you try to make practice at least fun for everybody. But no, we try to travel a ton. I try to go to everything I can. I try to encourage my guys to go everything you can. I think it's the best part about the SCA, their inner kingdom stuff, where you can see all what people like to use in different areas and be able to identify them just by what they wear or how they fight. To me, that inner kingdom anthropology is amazing.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree 100%. That's the piece that allows us to push it over. Push, like Sean's saying, push you into that 2%, is going out and seeing, picking up that pace and timing of others and forms and being able to recognize where weaknesses are. The more you do that, the faster you can compute it, and the faster you can figure how to win that fight. So that's a big part of the game. I guess one of the big questions out there is going to be how do you tend to get people? Are you guys super disciplined about coming over, or because they've been with you forever? Or
usually once my guys get by, and we have a practice once a week. If everybody goes once a week. We obviously haven't had much lately at all, but the whole process itself is addictive. It's just like getting good at any other martial art. That competitive spirit comes out in people, and you nobody wants to be the bottom barrel guy. Everybody wants to get better and work your way up. The larger environment you have of people who feel that way, the easier it is to bring outliers into it and build it up.
Yeah.
When it's a small cadre, it's a lot more work. When I first came over, it was definitely more work than it is now.
Because it's the norm now, right?
Yeah, and I have a lot of younger guys. Like I'm the oldest guy who fights with us, and I'm 43. Most of my Ragnar, who got 92 so Ragnar, is 34. Kreppen and all them, they're all early 30s. Ozar is 24. Valor's 20, 28. So I got a bunch of mid 20s, early 30s guys, and that helps bring younger people in, and that itself helps. When you're not the young guy at the old guy party.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk about getting out in the big bad world, as it were. So when you and I met as Penzic 2012, I was out there in the field with Stephen Beckenham, who's one of my long-term trainers. I've been training with him since Estrella in the late 90s. And Timmer was out there as well. We were all it was kind of a slow day. It was kind of at the end of the day. And it's really no surprise that I ended up on the field with Beck and with Timmer. And then you stumbled along, and you were unbelted. You were King's champion for Ruffin. Tell me a little bit about what got you there, how you ended up there, how you found us. What was it about the three of us just kind of sitting there that because I know what it is, but I think there's a lot of people that benefit from the mindset. Like, what took you there? How did you get there?
So for me, when I came to the SCA, I was already famous in several other games and very good at fighting there, but I'd been on top for a really long time, and I knew about the SCA, and I had friends who played SCA. It just, at the time, I was too young and it wasn't for me. But when I got into the SCA, I knew what I wanted to be. I wanted to to get good. I want to be recognized as one of the better fighters. And all the guys I knew were Dukes, right? So I formed me a plan to try to get good at fighting. And so my knight, Duke Drake, I think Brannos knows him, and a few
Oh, yeah.
others.
Yeah, I know.
I met him my second time out. He actually just came back out, and we fell in thick as thieves. And super good at fighting, and a nice guy. And he really helped me understand the SCA mentality and how the SCA works. And I was about the fighting and the meeting people who would. I was looking for people to kill me. You know, like I wasn't looking for people to beat people up. I want to find people better than me and then fight them. And because to me, losing is what gives you drive. When I played the other games, you're on top so long, you lose that edge. You lose the willingness to want to go the extra mile. It just goes away because it's not as fun. But over here, you're just getting beat up by every other person you meet. And to me, it gave me energy to put all the time in for practice and to travel and go meet all these things, because it's like a new mountain. You get off your little hill that was a mountain before, and you look, and you're like, oh, that looks super fun. And so people said I need to learn how the SCA works, and I decided to try to win Rapids King Champion. And so I fought in that tournament and did real well and won. And so it was the opportunity to serve the crown, to go around with them, and they can introduce you to people, you know, and learn. And that Pennsic, I was there for pickups because I had seen all these videos of all these years of people doing pickups. Obviously not as many pickups at Pennsic as there used to be, but I got done with all my stuff there, and I knew what I was doing. I was going to go out there and see if anybody was still fighting. And I think y'all were the only 3 or 4 people out there fighting. I remember that new guy that was super loud about every time you killed him. He was like yelling, "Excellent! Oh, really good!" And I was like, "What is going on here?" That's why I kind of watched from the edge for a while. I was like, "Is this something private, or can I get in on this?" You know? And you're like, "Hey there, little newbie." I was like, "What's up, guys?" Like,
Well, and that enthusiasm was palpable. I mean, it was, and you know, that's, I mean, you know, we would have been happy just, you know, finishing out the day with the 3 of us. But when we get somebody that has that passion and that is just really excited about it, and you were a total sponge about it too. And you know, I mean, I remember in Ansteorra years ago where you know, it was the old Schneff Farms down in the gravel pit, and had to be 2000. And I ended up spending the end of my day on Saturday with Duke Jade, Duke Uther, and Duke Fabian, and it was the 3 of them working me over. And that was kind of a catalyst moment for me. You know, I mean, I'd been working with those guys for a long time, so it wasn't really all that unusual. But you know, having just the 3 of us, just the 3 of them with me, and them scrutinizing everything that I'm doing, was a pretty powerful moment for me. And I think you got a little bit of that, and you know, and it was, you know, I had always, for a long time, I wondered what it was, why it was that people with such experience would be so generous in their time. Like, why are they going to give me all of this? And it just turns out that it's
they want you to give it back to them.
Yeah.
You don't improve on your own. You know, you're going to get to that peak, and you're gonna be lonely on your little island. You want to build other people up and help you get better. And that's what I came over looking for. At the Gulf Wars previous to that, I met Brannos and Ragnvaldr, and Drake had me fight 5 Dukes of Ascending Skill Order, and I ended with a alien beating on me. I met him, and that was super fun. He actually came and spoke at my knighting a couple years later. He's a super cool cat. But that type of person will find people like them. You know, they're not easy to spot, but generally you're there for a reason. It's to get better. I tell people in practice, I'm usually at practice trying to work on like some specific thing that I have in mind or something I want to work on. And I don't care if I die 100 times. I'm just trying to get better at some one thing that I want to do, or something that I feel like has been bothering me, or something I'm not doing right mentally. I watch videos, something caught my eye. But if you approach your actual sparring time like it's practice for you, like something you want to work on, you're going to knock those rough edges off a lot easier. Because for me, practice is not, you're not out there to try to win practice. You're out there because you are, it's called practice for a reason. Like, probably want to approach it to get better, you know, whether it's your jab or your movement or something you don't like. You have an idea, have a goal for practice. And it doesn't have to be a great goal, but it should be an achievable goal, something small, whether I want to work on throwing this shot, or when he does this, this should be a good response, preconditioned responses or steps, just something to help you improve. Uh, Tournaments are about killing people, but practice itself should be improvement, whether self or others.
Yeah.
So is all of this stuff trapped in your head, or
No, I actually wrote two little, actually probably more than that, two booklets years and years ago in foam fighting. I wrote a two sword, a little thesis, and then a single sword thesis. Because what's different in the SCA than foam? Most of your theories and teaching over there is applied with single sword fighting. So you'll do a lot of 36-inch sword, single sword fighting, and a lot of your reading, movement, and all that stuff is based on one sword, because you can add the shield in or the second sword later. And the reason I got so good with my left hand is when I was younger in foam, I tore all the tendons in this thumb. It's been 20-something years. It still won't lay all the way down. And so it was almost a year I had surgery on my hand, but I couldn't do that. So I do everything left-handed, whether it's brushing your teeth or all this stuff. And I find that people, when they're working on their non-dominant hand, they only want to use it for like SCA fighting. They're like, oh, I practice with my hand. I'm like, I brush my teeth left-handed, I drink left-handed, open doors left-handed. You want to get that minor motor skill, because when you have to think about something, it's like a mental noise, right? So a good example is, say you're brushing your teeth, you're right-handed, right? You could probably brush your teeth right-handed and read something or do something, right? Because that is an automatic skill set. It's something you've done enough that you don't have to apply mental thought to it, right? But do that same task with your non-dominant hand, you're gonna do your best not to deep throat the toothbrush. Like it's something you're not gonna be at the same time, because you have to focus your intent. So the purpose of practice is to get rid of that mental noise, is to get rid of the thought behind your fighting, is to make it where you're just doing what you've been told and what you've practiced. You remove all that mental pick my hand up, throw, step. If you can get rid of all that mental noise, then you can just focus on what they're doing, and then you just react and make it happen.
Are you right eye dominant or left eye dominant?
I believe I'm right.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I got hit with a big wood chip running a chainsaw above my head. It stuck it in my eye, but a lot of it is just is a super ton of practice. So when I fight left-handed, I traditionally fight left foot forward. It's a pretty square stance, but it's still left foot forward and right hand, right foot, and that's just a crossover from foam, because there the inches matter. Like you traditionally wouldn't fight that goofy foot style in a faster speeded game.
Yeah, the dominant eye can affect your targeting and your depth of perception to some degree. And even though I'm naturally left-handed, I'm right eye dominant. And so in all my power sports when I was a kid, like baseball, football, that sort of thing, I did all that right-handed anyway. So, but I think being right eye dominant kind of helps me fight right-handed a little bit too. I think if I was left-handed and left eye dominant, I think I'd more likely be fighting left-handed. So I also wanted to point out too that even though you tend to specialize in the two sword thing, I think you just kind of touched on this a little bit, but I think it's important for people to realize that the concepts that you're teaching are not two sword specific concepts.
No. They're sword specific, right? Like we teach right hand, right, left hand, because when we do all our training, we don't want you to overdevelop one side. A lot of people will put too much training in this hand and not work. It gets you off center. It's like if you were lifting weights with one side of your body. So when we're doing our 1,000 shots, it's 1,000 shots a hand. So you're gonna, when you work through the sets, you alternate, because you want to stay even. You don't want to be create that the non-balance. So when you first start, your right hand is like for me, my right hand was already stronger than my left, so I didn't even my workout. I tried to do twice as much with my left as I did with my right, trying to catch up to get rid of that deficiency. So if you switch from your dominant to your non-dominant, you obviously have to put more effort indicates to make this hand catch up to this hand. So it just takes a little bit of measure and approach. So when I tell people when they start my pelling, don't pell as much as your dominant hand can. Whatever your numbers are for your left hand, try to do about half that with your right, because it really doesn't do much. If you're pelling for conditioning and stuff, it doesn't. You're only doing half as much with one hand and twice as much with it. Doesn't do any good. You always want to try to even yourself out and then get your numbers up as far as conditioning goes.
So what would you say, I think, we take a look at the SCA, what would you say the biggest weakness of most fighters is? I mean, if you were like, hey, I want to help everybody, here's what I really think the biggest weakness is.
Most people don't do well with pressure. They get their heart rate elevated up and they hold their breath, and they don't do well with consistent pressure and pushing. They lock up. And I tell people I fight a lot of sword and shield here, and I'm by no means a great sword and shield fighter, but I beat a lot of people in tournaments with it because I wear people down. Like I attack their conditioning, I attack their mental approach, and it's not that I'm super good at it. I'm relatively hard to hit, good move well, but it's that application of edge of measure pressure, stepping through and then giving them back, and that people picking their weapons up, that deep breath, that just burns people down, and people don't pay enough attention to that push pull and that when you need it to move and when it's too late to move, and that whole process, it ramps people's heart rate up and down, and the breath. That in itself, that whole mental approach and process kills tons of people. And I see it a lot because I fight two swords, so it's easier for me to press and pull phantomly because I'm already at the edge of range and I have two hands and I can make them pick their shield up and lean and move. And so they already start to burn down by holding their equipment up long before I'm really wanting to try to get in there and try to get a good shot in.
Yeah, I think the big piece there is, and because I've been doing this, the kind of the Eastern European boxing stuff really does quite a bit of that. It's not that Mexican pressure where it's constant on top of somebody type of pressure. It's that I'm going to push you until you're ready to respond, and I'm going to fall back, and then as soon as you want to rest, I'm going to push you again. So you're in total control of yourself and of your opponent. So when I first started it, I'd look for people breathing. So as soon as they started a breath, I jump on them a little bit.
I tell people when I see people take that deep breath, put pressure on them, make them hold their breath. They take that deep breath, like the moment I feel like they're wanting to relax, press in. I if you've seen my fighting over the years, like where I've went from to here, you'll see that I fight more with my hands more on my chest. I rest a lot more, and that way I come in. It's easier for me to relax, but from that position, it's easier for me to press and make people put their equipment up. Yeah. And all the while keeping my shoulders very square and my lungs very open, so even though you're doing your basic moves, you're in a very relaxed posture position, and it's pretty easy to come back to your guard from.
That's one of the things I tell people is that we base our perception of range based on the thing that is closest to us. And so with the two swords, you got two things that can be at vastly different ranges. Like when you put your sword tip out, just kind of tap the tip and just, and that's just so you can have something closer to your opponent to like.
A lot of people on television, they'll take a look at it, or they'll attempt to fight that. It's just coming from here, and you just roll your tip forward. And a lot of people they raise their weight, or they'll sink. Both are fine, And then since I'm at a left foot, left hand, but my left hand is turned so far out, a lot of people don't realize that when I relax, it's pretty far forward, And so they're measuring on my backhand, back foot, and this is a 33, 34 inch sword. This is a 38 and a half inch sword,
Right.
Right. Get a quick turnover and then not realize how close they were, that edge.
Yeah, and it costs you nothing.
People miss the most.
Yeah, and it costs you nothing to do that.
Not even a little bit. You just quick jab.
Yeah, that's fun stuff.
So, and I think that, talking about that, because these are kind of new stuff, obviously you didn't walk in kind of doing that. You're kind of developing into it. Is there new stuff that you've been working on yourself?
So going back to the resting position. So before I won my first crown, I was closer to what I did in Ansteorra, which is a right hand out and a left hand kind of down. And then when I won my two crowns, it was more in front of my face, and this one is down and back in your shoulder roll position. So when you come forward, it's your body weight throwing this hand, right? It's very easy because I'm not having to push it. It's already rolled as far back as it'll go. So it's very easy to throw front blade or back blade from a hand. And this is just your 90-degree shape that you take and you just roll it. It's very easy to come from a hang, a flat snap out of, or thrust from. And so I've switched more from that, which I consider a perfect two-sword guard, to more of a relaxed, my right hand closer to my chin and my left hand more. My shoulders still roll back. My shape is still there, but it's down because once people know who you are, they stay away more. They're trying to do their thing, and so it's easier for me to draw people in to press from there because I look more relaxed, especially when you keep your shoulders back. So that draw, and as you spend more time with that edge of measure, when people come in, they don't realize from a rested hand position, if your shoulder's already back, it's very easy for you to get a shoulder as you step forward or back and throw from it. So it's more misdirection and more deception and less about the pureness of how I teach to fight. I still teach people to fight that way. It's just what I'm doing right now to try to really work on drawing and pushing. And it uses less energy for me. You don't have to pick your hands up as much.
Yeah, I mean you're preloading. You're chambering everything.
Left hand, yeah. And with my hand, with this here, my left hand, it's easier for me versus where I was. It's easier for me just to throw that quick jab, stab at the face, or that quick offset head. And a lot of people don't realize I don't do a lot of jabbing with my right. I do more of the face thrust or more of the trap and deny. But if you don't experience it a lot, you're not going to be used to it. They're going to be looking at your right hand because most people are right-handed, and it helps that push pull. That's what I've been working on. I've got the hanging guard pretty down, but I don't do well with the Molinet. For me, instead of doing that, I'd rather just throw with this hand because when I bring my hand down, the goalpost, you make your sword both vertical, makes you easier to hit in the face. So a lot of times it's easier just to keep this hand to block while this hand is able to throw free.
So, I mean, obviously, that's a big part is I think, the lesson there is that we're always constantly trying to learn and develop, right? And
we have like you said, you have a system, and you have a great system that you teach, and a lot of it is that everybody knows you have a great jab, and you throw this, and but people understand how you fight, and so then you're looking for counters to your own stuff. Like, well, if I'm throwing this, what's he leading from? It's always a push-pull learning situation. I use Sean as a great example. We talked about it in my last meeting. When I first met Sean was tall. He had fought a lot of two-sorters, so I did more throwing into his hand because he was mullineting a lot down, and so I was able to stay more in his hand and throw down. But next time we fought, he did more of a ridge range stand, and he threw more of my hand to make me raise to hit me in the leg. The next time we fought, I just got shorter. I did a similar thing the first time, but I fought closer to the ground and more towards his sword, staying away from his shield, making Sean want to long step more, which helped me with legging him. It's always you got to pay attention to the small things, and there's always approach to it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate to fight you back and forth for like at least twice a year for several years, and yeah, the joy of it really is well, I'm gonna try this thing out. It's like I've got a theory. Let me try that out, and it's like okay, well that worked to some degree, and this didn't work at all, and so I'm gonna take another shot at that later, and and come back and you think about these things, and I know you've changed your fight like globally in response to some of the stuff that I've been able to pressure you with. You don't change your fight for me. I mean, you find something that I'm doing that makes you vulnerable, and you make changes to that, and they're global changes that are applicable to
Correct.
everybody.
You want to find something that I felt you did well, and I want to take it away from you. Or if you have a tendency that something you like to throw, like the first time we fought, I'd watched a ton of video on you, and I knew you like to throw that and if I can elicit that response from you, that in itself puts me a step ahead, because if I can trap you into a throw, I already know where to be, and you should know the throw behind it, But the application is the same, you're always making yourself less vulnerable and making it safer for you to be able to hit the other person, because the goal is to not be hit ever, right?
Yes, exactly. Hey, so we got a question, and I really like this question because I think people are actually starting to think about this now, and this is something that we really didn't think or talk that much even before COVID about it, and that is, do you do any drills that are specifically around decision-making drills?
So it's actually a foam drill. It's one I come up with years ago. So years and years ago, I reversed my right knee. I popped out of socket, back in socket. I walked with a limp for a while, and so in the process, I lost my big lunge. I used to, go real far, and I lost that ability to close. So we have a foam drill that's called block strike. It's with two 36-inch swords, and it's a 4-minute drill. You do a minute rotation, so it'd be like right on right, right on their left, your left on their left, right on. You see, you all rotate through a hand position, right? And so it's kind of a I go, you go situation. So if we're fighting, I pick two targets on opposite sides of the body. Traditionally, we fight the arm, and then we'll fight the back body, right? So if we're fighting right on right, and I've got my right hand, traditionally the arm will be a target, and then you're saying somebody because you're always trying to cross the body, so it would be like a slot shot. In this, the head would not be legal, right? So you're always trying to cross and press the center line, right? So if I threw at your arm, you denied, your cleanest shot is here, but if I come back too soon, you'll throw the slot. I attempt to block. It doesn't matter if you block it or not. Like, you don't have to start and stop. It's the you reading it coming in, where you threw, how you threw, and throwing back, and where your hand position needs to be, because a lot of people's hands generally are too low, or too high. So some of that is from hand bounce. So when in foam, the number one thing that kills you is when you're reading stuff, is that hand bounce. Like the people's hands will go up and down. It is the number one killer of you in foam, right? So if you have hand bounce and when you're reading stuff and your hands are going up and down, you're going to get killed, because they're just going to hit you in the arm, and so you have to learn how that settle, where you throw, where your hands need to be. So I would do it right on right. We do it a minute. You'd switch left on right. We do it a minute. I'd switch. We do left on right a minute, and then you go back to your left and my right, and we do it, and you do 4-minute drill, 1-minute rest, and you can move the target so long as they cross your body and then the upper quadrants. You're fine.
Do you have any? Do you video of that drill anywhere? You got that out there?
I can find a couple there's some other people in AmpGuard that do it. It's a pretty well-known foam drill. I just got to find one that I like, because some people do it. Some people think the objective of the game is to hit the other person, versus the objective is to. For me, it's more about the reading. It's more about learning where your lanes are and where your little triangle, your little cone of defense, where you need to be. If your hand's not in position, you should dip, or it's more about learning awareness of self and read, and then you're just getting tons of reps in on trying not to be hit, right? And for me, even in foam, a success is if I'm making contact with them and you're still hitting me, I know that I'm in the right area. My decision is just a little slow, that's not necessarily my fault, but when you're missing or you're out of position, you obviously see a problem. You either twist your torso, or we call it lawnmower, or people that hand jerk back. We call it lawnmower. I was like, you start it? Did you get it going that time? Keep jerking on it. You'll start it this time. And
I love it.
But it's super predominant in foam. When people are out of position, they'll have that big jerk. I was like, and that will always get you killed. That big hand. If you're out of position that much, that swinging your hand across your frame is never the answer. It's going to be something in between. You need it to move somewhere, dip. You need to raise, step.
Yeah, minimal movement, right?
The big lawnmower thing is not what you're looking for.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, people don't talk about that much. In fact, in all, we've been doing this for 6 months or so now, and we don't get a lot of that talk. But that idea of minimal movement becomes that real game changer, right? It's like you get smoothness, small movements, and you keep everything in the right spaces.
That's like what we talk about now, like what I teach my guys, like our basic A-frame 2-sword stance. Most shots that you throw hit my guard. I don't have to chase anything. Like I dip a little bit, or I step depending on range. And as you close, we'll dip and bring one hand down. But you don't see a bunch of this. You don't see me going down. It's all right here. When you want to go, and then you're able to throw. And people are like, "Oh, you're so fast." I was like, "Well, I was really already there." There's tons of people with your hand down or hand over, they throw at the offside. They try to hit your arm, and not realizing that where they're coming from is a plane. Like that sword will go through that plane to my arm. I don't have to block my arm. I just have to get in the plane of where your sword goes. Right? You're chopping at my hand. I don't need to block it where it finishes. From your shoulder to my arm, I just need to intersect that line. That cone. Get your hand out in that cone and throw behind. It's a timing issue, and the foam weapons will help you learn where your hands need to be in space, not too close, not too far away, how high they need to be. And it's just a repetition game. And usually if you have somebody who's good at it, you're like hands too low, hands too high, watch what you're supposed to do. Because some people, they get too long, like when you're So we also, I didn't talk about, we do this 3 foot apart because these are 3 foot swords. So we go toe to toe, and your foot, my sword, you would touch the pommel, I would touch the tip, and you would be the hand. So if I fight right-handed, it's right foot. If I fight left-handed, it's left foot. So you will be 3 foot apart. And 3 foot, if you're faking, you can hit people anytime. But if I'm just trying to hit you and block and hit you and block, as you would if you're fighting, right? You're not going to stand that close trying to fake people. That's not the objective. The objective is to throw, be in position to throw. Because sometimes in that drill, as you get better at it, you'll see that you're not hitting people your first shot. You're drawing. You're throwing into them. You're getting them to throw a predictable return. You're catching that as it comes back as a half measure, right? You go early and throw behind, you know, and so that increased tempo change will hit people, and then you're back in position. You know, you're always approaching it with you're not always trying to kill people. Sometimes you try to get them ready to kill. You want to set them up. You want to get in a better position. You want to have an escape, or you want to draw. There's tons of things to do that don't involve hitting your opponent that will help you win.
Yeah, you know, Al-Anon had talked about that a little bit when he was talking about probing the fight, you know, where, you know, the objective is not to kill somebody with one shot, right? You know, he'll go out there and he'll throw the flat snap and end up killing somebody, and they're like, well, you just one-shotted that guy. I'm like, well, that was the probe. Like, that was my test, and he failed. You know, he died on the test, you know. And it's the same kind of thing. It's like everybody has this you know, mythical image of the one-shot kill and all this, and it's like that's never an objective. It's just one of those things you're kind of pleasantly surprised when it happens.
Yeah, well, it's like what we teach in Two Sword. You know, you see I do a little ton of jabbing, I draw, you know, a little quick thrust, and you throw a ton of that offside, trying to pick people's shields up, and all those set up for, it's just set up for my gear check. It's set up for that, as I see you blind, or as I see you tense, you throw that quick 1-2, that hand comes down and dips, and you throw the 1-2, and people are like, well, that's all you kill people with. I'm like, really? It's just a big setup. Like, all I'm trying to do is apply pressure with the other things to throw this, because the people who see me, they don't tense, they draw, they fade, or they step in. You know, like there's a measure that you learn not to do. You know, and it's not that's a teaching tool. Is that people don't realize what they're doing. They don't, until you watch it on video. They're like, oh, I felt like I did this. You're like, no, you did this, you adjusted your way. And so sometimes people need to watch video themselves, because what they see here is not what they're actually doing. And we do a ton of video review all the time with heel steps, with feet too long, with hands out of position, with, you know, like drawing shoulders over. It's all small things. So you need to square your hips here. The feet need to be a little wider. Your hand is too low, you know, and if you can pick at these small things, it gives them things to work on for the next time they fight, or even that fight. You know, you're like, hey, I didn't like where this was. And then they, you know, that measure and time you put in is cumulative. It helps build up a lot quicker than somebody trying to learn that mental image on their own versus somebody showing it to them or teaching them as you go. I think that's why the dojo method is so successful. It's because you've got these other guys going, no, pick your hand up, shorten your feet, widen your stance, pick your hand up, pick your hand up, pick your hand up.
Exactly.
Over. That's all you hear in the background. Hands too low, you know, or turned your hand too late, arms too straight, you know, check your shape. But it's just a small thing that every time they swing, you know, one of the coaches is like, do it again, do it again, do it again. So a lot of times when my guys are new to the 1 through 1,000, as they get to the 1,000, because it takes you a while to, even conditioned fighters, like a lot of times they're not conditioned. What makes you tired when doing the paddling drill? It's picking the sword up, right? Like the ability when you throw is picking it back up so that you can throw again, right? You're not used to that motion of applying the motion when you hit to throw again 1,000 times, right? You're going to do your 1 through 6, your 1 through 6, and then you'll do it backwards 1 through 6 and backwards 1 through 6. So everybody does Uther's 1 through 6 drill, 1, 1, 1, 2, right? So we'll do it forward with both hands, and then we'll do it backwards. We'll start on the offside, and you'll finish strong. What that is for is, as your arm dies in your cycle, your 4 cycle, as your arm dies, you're finishing out on the strong side. Your same side in the back half of the cycle, and you can do that 7 times. It's 1,006 shots. The problem with it is, as you get good, you got to rethrow shots that are bad, because the objective to hit, we use the padded bag, is you're trying to hit about a 6. You don't want to hit it super hard. You're not trying to hit it soft. You want to hit the bag, right? And that recovery and that throw just burns your shoulders out. Well, once your shoulders are not burning out, you can really work on throwing and going through the motions. And you'll find that you're not getting tired when you throw anymore, because people at first, they don't do any good until they get tired, because then to throw it correctly, to make the shot, you have to throw it correctly. And a lot of times people with non-dominant hand are better than their dominant hand because this one knows how to fight, and this one just does what it's told, right?
Yeah, I too watch a lot of video, and I teach a class on video analysis. And one of the things I love about doing video analysis is when you do a freeze frame on somebody and they're doing something just super ridiculous. It's always funny how many times they look and go, I don't do that. Like,
Yeah.
well, it turns out the video says you do.
Walking up on one foot or all turned over. You're like, what?
Yeah,
What are you guys doing? Who are you waving to? Who's in the backfield there? You know.
I don't do that. Well, turns out
Yeah,
you
but
do.
and that's back to that mental image thing. So many people have an idea of what they do, but don't get to see it enough in time. And so that's why we love video review. We videotape all our practices, or if we have a person who's having a problem with transitions in the 1 through 6, we'll videotape it. So
Well, at the same time, when you're watching video like that too, sometimes we get that still frame image, and there's plenty of video out there of me responding to something that happened, and I got my shield tabled up above my head, and it looks ridiculous, and it may be just one picture frame, but that's long enough.
Yeah.
And if you can pick up on those things, you can pick up on those moments when those things happen, and you're ready to respond to those moments when they do happen, without having a predetermined course of action, right? To where you're able to respond to what is happening, not what you want to happen.
And when you watch video of yourself in your mind, you're able to be like, what was I doing? Like, why did I do that? And most of the time you're like, I was trying this. You're like, man, that does not look at all like what I thought I was doing.
Right.
You're like immediately like, yeah, that was terrible.
That's what I get usually. I look at some of my video and I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ.
I'm like,
that guy should learn how to fight. Jesus.
Yeah. If you call what I do fighting.
We watch so much video of my students, they'll send me clips out of video, like where I'm heel stepping or my feet are too long or my hands are out of position, like a big WTF beside it. Like, what's this? And they're like, nobody asked you. Well, if you pick your hands up a little bit, I'm like, oh.
Well, at the same time, when I teach class, one of the things I do for the fighting clinic is we do video throughout Saturday, and then we'll go to somebody's house and do video analysis. And it's important for me to be able to show my mistakes in those, like, same day. It's like, I'm not infallible, and it's important for me to be able to look at something that I do on the video and to demonstrate to people, look, like, this is me not doing the things I told you to do, right? It happens to all of us. And, when I am successful, it is because I am doing these things right. And when I don't do these things right, and when I have this gross epic failure that you see in 1080p on your big screen TV right in front of you, I'm going to lose, right? So don't do the things that get you killed, like me right here getting killed because I'm not doing this stuff.
Well, a great example of that would be like Adult Swim or Sport of Kings. A lot of people are like, oh, I did really well against this guy, or I did really well against that. I'm like, well, I try not to count coup at your bigger practices, because a lot of people don't realize they may have fought 10 times, whereas you or I may have fought 50 or 60 times, like, yeah. And the objective of practice is getting good enough that, you're not getting tired when you're fighting, not holding your breath, but, there's still endurance limits in there, and you're still able to go. But it's to be as perfect as you can for as long as you can,
Right.
And
right.
Well, the object is to take your little bitty window and to make it much, much longer,
Yeah, I know it. This last Adult Swim, not this year, last year. I'm really bad about taking pictures of my friends, so I decided that at Adult Swim I was going to take a picture of everybody that I fought with. I got 25 different people on Saturday from 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, and easily fought each of them 5 times. So I probably could have fought more, but when I get done fighting somebody, there's good 20 minutes of training going on in addition to that too. But yeah, yeah, I counted 25 on Saturday, and I think I probably had another 15, 20 on Sunday. But 3 of those were Ozer with different weapon systems.
Well, I told you to go fight you sword and shield to set, or 2 sword to set the tone, and then to go fight you sword and shield to see what he need to work on. I mean, and all my guys take that to heart. Like to me, winning at practice doesn't make you want to practice more. Getting some bruises, getting leaned on a little bit. Because to me, when you try to impose your will and you're trying to do your fighting, and you take a little bit of beating there, it sharpens you up. It makes you want to get better. It should light the fire in you. Like that's not losing. That's like, oh, I'm coming
Yes,
back.
exactly. That's motivation, baby.
Yeah.
And that goes a lot. That goes back to a lot of the overall training philosophy that you're talking about. Because, I fought him sword and board, and that kid murdered me, right? Just straight up, just took me to the woodshed. And then I fought him sword and board, and we got done with him, and I'm like, okay, now I feel like I have something to offer. I feel like there's because I mean, I'll give you what tips and tricks I can when even when you murder me, but fight him sword and board, which is clearly not his dominant style, and and he was still that super open to input. I'm like, okay, well, this fight went a little differently because it's not your wheelhouse, so now I feel like I feel like I had more value to give him in that set.
Well, I use him as a great example. I mean, Ozark's been through this since he was 17. I guess he's 24 now, maybe 16. So he's been with us quite a few years. And my earlier squires fought like I learned to fight when I first got here, and then I transitioned. And as I learned, they learned. And he's the first one who learned as after I'd already won crown. I'd already changed my stance and flattened out and everything. So he's 24 now, and he's been with us for several years, and he could easily win crown. He's probably the most pure way that I teach to fight two sword. Super understanding, super good at teaching. Young and super good at it. Doesn't necessarily work well in the SCA as far as a social aspect goes, but is a murderer. And so I take him places to get that exposure to other things. Obviously, because like what you come across is you see me the most, and so you try to fight him like you would fight me, but he's 6'4", 24, moves real well, and has a super long leg shot. It has its own styles and nuances. And for me, people get to see how I fight. They get to see how all my squires fight. It's because it's all different. It's all got its little pieces in there. I love it, man. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, I mean, of all the guys that you brought over, there are very distinct similarities in that style, but Leaf was very different. Athos is very different. Crippen is very different. There's all these guys that are scattered throughout the U.S. that all came from Amtgard that were fighting with you, that came across about the same time. And there are definitely some similarities, but it is very different fighting all of you guys.
Yeah, because it's a building block, and then you go with what you're good at. I mean, I'm not 6'4". I am just under 6 foot tall, and I am 43 years old. I don't jump as well as I used to. I've got a bum ankle and a tore up shoulder from years ago. So I try to make it a safe, slow approach, more pressure, more in and out, and I don't go for coin flip situations. I'm like, can I win here? I'll wait. I'm like, we're doing well. I was like, is he's breathing? Now he seems to be doing well. Let's push for a little bit. Let's hang on him. How's this breathing now? Is he doing well? Now try to get him. Well, still in good shape, versus a lot of our guys you fight, they're more in that prime, more towards their Amtgard time. They're like, this looks successful. Start the chainsaw, and they work the system. It's successful and it works and it's fast, but they die more than they should. And to me, that's the antithesis of fighting really good two-sworder is I want to be allergic to rattan. It makes me break out, highs, puts bruises on me. I don't ever get it hit. So I try to make it as safe and as slow-paced and as easy for me to win fights as possible, whether that's running around for a little bit of hanging, a little bit of pushing, a lot of poking. I'm okay with that. There's no shot clock.
So let me piggyback on that. So one of the things you mentioned at the beginning here that that two sword is not the most popular system in the SCA. I mean, it's slightly more popular than the Madu, but I think one of the reasons
a lot they don't take anything. I was like, your average two-sword guy is armored up like a little tank and swings a ton, and nobody likes that guy. And he's always throwing late, and it's just a general dick about it. And it doesn't matter where they're from. Most people fight that big flurry movement. Oh, well, you may have gotten me, and it doesn't stop them from hitting you. And And realistically, fuck that guy. Like it was like hit your leg hard and roll on. And so we go out of our way to remove that mentality of the two sorter. But in addition to that, is it if your guys at your practice don't fight any good two sorters, like if you the first time somebody goes out and fights a guy like Leaf or a guy like that, they're just getting hit in the body. Nobody likes getting hit in the body or the arm real hard, and it's unpleasant. And people who are successful at sword and shield fighting who fight this and don't do well, there's some definitely some discord that people don't like. They don't like getting that beat on, and some people don't take it as a challenge. They take it as well, that guy's just talented instead of put a ton of practice in.
Yeah, and I think you kind of touched on it. I think one of the reasons that two sword is, I mean, two sword in the SCA is, in my opinion, has typically been just, it is an inherently sloppy style. Oh, because as you mentioned earlier, you don't have to cleanly block everything out. You just got to take the stink off. You got to just take enough of the bite off of it to keep it from making impact. And what people see with that is they see, they see a lot of what looks like contact with no actual impact, and it doesn't make it look bad. But you guys, I gotta say, you are one of the cleanest fighters in the SCA right now.
We all fight minimums. All my guys get a year. Once you're in my program, we give you a year and whatever you want to fight in. I don't care. At the end of that year, you'll probably have an ace or a hell. Shout out to Dave. But you're gonna fight minimums after that, because I figure by a year you kind of understand how we throw, how we move, what we're working on, and it will motivate you to not suck so much. Like you, a lot of people too heavy footed, a little too leany. They're okay wading in. When you can't wade in because you get hit in the tricep with no armor, or get hit in that thigh with no armor, you'll be a little more cognizant of that in out, that push pull, and so that really helps people to brighten up,
Well, and it's also you're past that point where they're going to be afraid to engage. Yeah. So
absolutely, but that taking away that tankiness, that that I can just go in, that they're not afraid because they're like, oh, I have armor on. I'm not afraid to get hit. It doesn't hurt me, but I'm not gonna let you hit me in the thigh 2 or 3 times, because now my stutter is gonna be terrible. You gotta take the good with the bad. But we don't wear anything. Like I fight in knees and arm. Brannos gifted me a set of arms years ago, and I put them on, and they are the tiniest little things ever. And I was right there, and I was like, "Yo, Grace." He was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Whoo, you're a bad man." I was like, I don't get hit in the arm hardly at all, but the thought of just that little bitty thing, like I put them together. I've still got them actually in one of my back rooms up there. I feel like, that for kids? I was like,
nope.
A very successful fighter gave me these and said these are wonderful arms, and they are for like a 5-year-old, not for me.
I think you guys should definitely be commended, because you've taken something that is and traditionally has been an inherently sloppy style.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
And you're doing it so well, and you're doing it clean, and that makes all the difference. So
yep, that dedication and training really proves that out, and I definitely would agree 100%. So
well, I think a lot of that too.
Oops,
I was gonna say, I think a lot of that too is going back to that same thing where it's like, it's not about winning.
Nope, not at all. So we're at the top of the hour, guys. So is there anything else you'd like to kind of throw out there, Sven, that you didn't have already in your notes and talk through?
So we'll just go over the fighting philosophy, because you guys have touched on, like, we do it a little different. I kind of talk about a few things, And so as far as developing your fighting philosophy for your group and the people you're going to try to teach, or people you want to learn from, is that people need to be clear with their expectations. You with what you want to learn, and you're the person you're learning from, or what they're going to teach you. Like all our guys come, we have expectations of practice. We have expectation of clothes. You're going to learn how to make shoe covers, because for me, covering your shoes or fighting in period shoes is the basic of making intent, and it's well known that that's what you're going to do. Types of armor we wear, you're going to learn to make armor, and so all that stuff's laid out as part of our philosophy of fighting. These are the things you're going to want to do. If this is not for you, don't come here, And then we use all our foam stuff. That's where we really encourage people to use foam swords for single sword practice, whether just to work on hand dominance, hand bounce, trying to learn your block strike drills. The other major thing we use foam for hand dominance, right? Most people are right-handed, so we are saying in our household, better lefty than good, right? So we teach a lot of people to fight left-handed, even if they're not left-handed. And so a lot of times my two sworders will take an 18-inch dagger and you'll fight it with your dominant hand. You're working on the foam sword in your left hand. And so when they're working against a foam sword shield guy, there's nothing funnier than when they're lined up, they're swinging that little bitty dagger, and
Yeah.
But in your mind, it helps you separate, your offense leads from your zone and your defense. It's not that you're only a single sword fighter. It's taking the ability to throw away from this hand. You still have your blocks, you can still move, but leading from your backhand with a super short weapon and with negative reinforcement go along with it, it's easier to make that transition in your mind from a right hand dominant to left hand dominant lead. Because for the most part, if you're fighting a right-handed person, you're going to fight left foot forward. You're going to deny their cone from their shoulder right, and you're going to do a lot more left hand leads because it's shield side open, right? Especially here fighting the door. Like I don't get a lot of anything over here. Sometimes
Right.
to the top. So you're obviously going to fight more in the zone of their shoulder. That works on working with your hands. Obviously, you have a training routine. Practice should be about improving at stuff, and people don't get better at stuff by doing the same thing over and over again. You're going to work on small pieces of what you want to do. Most exercises that you need to do for the SCA are going to be body weight oriented, whether you're doing burpees, lunges, some type of air squat, basic pelling. I don't tell people to use a weighted sword. Just use a traditional sword. Just use a square up more and throw a higher volume. As good a fighter as most people are, most people, when they first do it, can't do 1,000 shots with both hands because the object of picking up and throwing as you're doing your 1 through 6 drill burns the tops of your shoulders out. Unless you're used to doing that as part of something, you're not going to have that. A carpenter probably would, but it's not something you do a lot of. So it's an odd thing that you work on. If you are going to work on exercise equipment, buy a rowing machine. Rowing, hands down, especially interval rowing, number one thing closest to what SCA does. I don't run. It kills my knees. I've got a bad ankle. I row like a champ, wheeze like a champ too. Rowing's where it's at. If you don't have a rowing machine, buy a jump rope, like $6. It'll kill you. Best thing ever. For us, sparring is if you're into sparring and it's something you want to work on, and you have the person who's teaching you watch it or video it so that you can review it. Because what you're trying to do with sparring and fighting is taking what you're actively working on and putting it into practice, right? It's not necessarily practice makes perfection, but it's an application of what you're doing into what you think you're doing. And you need to make sure that what you see on tape is what you see here, what you're learning, so that may be, as you view it with people who can help you learn, they're going to tell you, watch this, and it gives you stuff to work on. Goes back to the other thing. Always have 2 or 3 things to work on. You always want a primary one. When you start having too many things to work on, it dilutes what you're working on. Pick one, work on that. Last half practice, pick something else. Don't stick with that one thing. Always, have 2 or 3 that you can work on throughout practice. Like, starting to suck at that. Let me work at this. Because people, as practice goes, past your first hour, as they're really zoning in on that one thing, they start overthinking and it gets them killed more. So usually 10 minutes a thing you're trying to work on, 15 at the most, and you need to switch. Take your mental mind off that, apply it to something else. Goes back to the frame weight transfer, like how to throw. The basics of what we do with 2 sword is a frame weight transfer. Is that when you're in a rested stance with your shoulder back, that I spend a lot of time with my shoulders back, and when you're throwing, you're not hitting people with your arm. Is as you go forward with your suddenness, your movement, you've got that stored energy in rested hands. It's the same as when you jab people or you hook people. You're not hitting them with your arm. You're hitting them with all your frame weight. And so look up frame weight transfer. That's how you want to be hitting people. You want to hit them. Even my most basic reps that I throw from that locked shoulder position, as you go, I dip my weight. I let gravity pull me down, and then that frame weight of me falling slightly before I catch myself is what makes that rap so powerful. It's not because I'm throwing really hard. Is that you're transferring your body weight mass into a quick snap. Frame weight transfer, super fun. Okay, so we'll talk about a couple things that we drilled on. So we talked about pelling some, right? So pelling as a whole with 2 feet doesn't tell you a lot, especially if you're an experienced fighter, because you're gonna be able to make it up with torso twist or drop or whatever it is. So when we have people pel, we generally try to have them pel pretty square, not absolutely horse stance to something, but like heel toe, left foot or right foot forward, right? What that's going to do is going to help when you're pelling. You don't want a chest rotation. You want to try to stay as absolutely neutral to the bag as possible, so that you're isolating more of your shoulders and you're throwing with your weight more. What that does, it helps you isolate what you throw with, and you're learning to throw a good mechanic from a neutral position. You can always add the movement or the dip or the turn when you actually fight. But when you're training, you want to make it as restrictive as possible. You want to throw a good minimum blow and make it as hard as you can for yourself. So the more you square yourself out, the easier that is to throw. So the problem with 2 feet is that you're not necessarily going to get the greatest feedback from that. So once you're kind of understanding, you're squaring yourself out, you're not got all those big movements, you're doing on one foot. It doesn't matter if it's your right or your left foot, whichever hand. Everybody has a good foot and a good hand they're good at. Some will bobble, some are the same one. But try to throw that same mechanic off 1 foot, right? So you'll feel it. And when you're throwing it right, you sink your gravity ever so slightly, and you'll be able to throw those same mechanics off 1 foot as you can too, right? And it shouldn't have all that big stuff. It should just be a good, clean mechanic. So once you're able to throw all your basic shots on one foot or the other, that's a clean, very neutral, basic mechanic at a 6. That's not any big stuff. That's just a bang, bang. You're not having to do all this big wasted motion. You're trying to make it as minimal as possible. And all the one-footed stuff and all your pel work, for the most part, uses the back of your shoulder. And when you kind of get to a routine, like I don't mostly do back pelling anymore. I do like a pitch and toe pelling. And so you'll take your same basic stuff you do your 1 through 6 wheel, and you'll bring your toes in, you'll pitch and toe your toes, and then you'll dip to your knees touch yourself. So you would turn your knees towards yourself and bend your knees till your legs come together like this, and try to pel like that. So what that is, when you're down, and what you can't do anymore when your legs are engaged down like that is you can't apply your body mass, because your knees are turned in and your hips are locked down. And so whenever you're pelling there, it's mainly just the front part of your shoulder, and it isolates the front instead of the back of your shoulder. And you'll find that just doing the 1 through 6 or basic pel routines will burn a different part of your arm, because now the recovery is more like an up motion, like a draw. It's not the through, because when you're trapped forward like that, it's harder to roll your shoulders back, and it isolates the front. And you're able to just basic 1 through 6 burn the front part of your shoulders down. And then that in itself between the two helps get your conditioning for your shoulders up. We really focus on conditioning. We talked a little bit about how to do the hand dominance with foam swords. That's just basic sparring between a sword shield guy and a 2-sword guy. And it's just like the same as if you're watching an SCA fight. We talked about feet lead earlier. Our 2-sword is all sword foot, sword hand forward. We traditionally fight with a longer sword in our lead hand. So if I was fighting a right-handed person, I would have a 38 on my left, and 33 or 34 on my right. You were supposed to switch hands and switch feet when fighting lefties. I don't do it as much, even though it's what I teach to everybody. It's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to switch your feet, same thing, long, short, in your hands. What that does, the reason I want a shorter sword in my backhand is if I'm fighting you, whenever I'm throwing stuff, I want the right-handed sword, which I consider my defense hand, to turn over faster. I need a quick deny, or I need to throw or deny. The longer the sword is, the slower that turnover is. When you have a slower turnover, it gives you more goalpost time, where your swords are both up or both out. You're trying to make that time as small as possible. And when swords are shorter than 33, you lose the ability to hit the leg as much. You can't threaten it. It's too short. You got to kind of reach for it. It goes away. So that 33 to 36 range, depending how strong you are, that's for it. I fight with the trigger. I don't know if you guys do. Coming from foam, I had a naturally loose grip, and I use like a diamond handled trigger, and it's got 3 fingers, and that helps me relax my grip. And so when you're throwing that baseball throw, it's more like that true snap and whip. I'm a huge fan of triggers. I don't know about you guys. I'm a huge
No, I just use lanyard. I'm not a big fan of trigger.
I've been using triggers for a long time, but I think people think there's something magical about a trigger. There's really not. It's for me, it's a martial tool.
It helps.
Yeah, this is whatever you're comfortable with.
it helps them teach to relax your hands. So if you got a newer guy who's throwing the sword too much, you give them a decent trigger. We really work on like just let the trigger work, right? Loosen your hand up, because when people are newer and they're throwing super hard, usually they're just death gripping, and the Pell will teach you that quickly, right? Because when you're throwing your 1 through 6, if your forearms burn out first or your hand grip goes away because you're holding your sword too tight while you're trying to do high volumes of shots, and that you won't make it past 300-400 shots. You'll be done.
It doesn't. I mean, keeping a death grip, that does not allow you rotation in the stick.
No, but people think that's how they're going to throw hard, or how they're going to get high volume. They're really like, working. You're just going to burn down, because when your objective is 1,000 shots and not 100, it's you're going to have good form to make it.
Yeah, Rifkin recently did a video on loose grip mechanics, which is actually quite good. So, so if anybody's out there watching, you go to Sir Rifkin's page and take a look at that. It's a really great example of that loose grip.
There are several. I see the little where you go to purchase foam weapons. There are actually several big ones out there. Look for stuff that's amp guard. It's going to be a little lighter. Dag and Bell weapons, Dagger here and Bellegarth are also good weapons. They have a 16-ounce weight minimum. Amp guard is going to be more like your 10, 12 ounces. For what we're doing I would rather the weapons be faster. For me, making yourself read and move faster is always an advantage. You can always do it better with slower weapons. So I try to get the fastest thing out there that doesn't hurt. That's what you use, and you go to that. The number one thing we talk about is all these exercise and basic stuff is to get better. Practice should be the hardest thing that you do. Like your basic practice is miserable. Like you're there, put your time in. Before the boy was born, I was doing in my CrossFit routine 3 days a week, and the worst day of the week was the day after practice, because when you're out there putting your time in, you're looking for goal there. And so when you fight, that's the free time. That's the time you enjoy. You're out there working and teaching and doing your thing. The practice is the grind. The practice is you have your goal that's driving you, whatever it is for you, to get good or to be king or whatever. You got to have a goal.
Yeah, that's something they say in the Navy SEALs Buds school is the more we sweat in training, the less we bleed in combat.
True. So I'll tell people the more I practice, the luckier I am.
Right. Yep.
Or I'd rather be lucky than good. Just put your time in. And if it's not fun for you and it's not something that you enjoy, for me, even though as much as I talk about practice not being fun, practice for me is what helps me get to my goal. And my goal of being better at something, or have my students be better, that next level that you're looking for, bringing people up, that's what I enjoy. And me getting killed or getting whooped on a little bit, like when I try to impose and somebody puts the bruises on me, that helps me refocus, and we want to get out there and do stuff. And that's what drives me. If it's not fun, it's not going to be fun for you, because it's not a fast process.
I think people confuse the term fun a lot. It's not laughing and joking and everything. It's work, but the work is enjoyable.
Oh,
absolutely. It's enjoyable, and it's a worthy endeavor, and that's what we're looking for. And sometimes it is going to be more work than it is fun, but if you put that work into it, as I think was it Ragnvaldr or Brannos that said, winning is fun too.
Yeah, we use that one all the time.
That's what I was going to tell people. I was like, and that's the number one thing we say at practice. Remember, winning is super fun. It's not for everybody, but winning is fun. Our big thing, we live in Texas here. It's hot as can be. You guys see it sometimes posted on my page where we have shade. Shade is for winners. What that's from is my old house. I used to live here north of Dallas. I had a shed, and at any given time there was no trees in this yard. At any given time when the sun was shining down, there was only one place with shade, and that was against the shed, right? Like whoever could lean up against the shed. So when you weren't fighting, if you won your way out, you were in the shade against the shed, and the shade was only for winners. So you gotta win your way into the shade, right? If you weren't winning your way into the shade, you're going to suffer, or you're going to go inside. It was motivation. So every time you see a shade is for winners, it's because you had to fight your way into the shade.
I always thought winners got sprinkles, but shade sounds good too.
Not in Texas, you'll throw sprinkles up, but you'll definitely want that shade. That's kind of a little bit of
Right.
overview. I
You
can
know,
uh, I can send y'all some links to where I suggest people buy foam swords from, and then if I can find them, the links to the block strike examples for foam fighting.
yeah,
Uh,
I think that would be great. Actually, if you could maybe send us off those notes too, we'll tag them all into the YouTube of this session so that people have a place they can go see those and get all that information. We're trying to, as you know, we're trying to share, and we're grabbing great people out there that have good schools and good people around them and good fundamentals, and trying to drag them in and help us educate our people, because the more educated we are as a fighting organization, the better we all become.
Absolutely, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's a two sword is a hit or miss in the SCA, and we try to make it as fun as for everybody as it can be, And I enjoy traveling and fighting you guys. Australia was the last thing I got to go to this year. I fought in the cancer tournament, and then I twisted my ankle the next morning, and then I haven't done much since then.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, hopefully soon. Hopefully soon we'll be back to doing our stuff, and we'll have a bunch more, so many more resources out there people can come to and learn and understand. If they want to reach those things, then they have to set those goals that you're talking about. They have to be disciplined. They have to work, because nothing comes that easy, right?
For me, it's the same as like if you want to lose weight or you want to do a CrossFit or a workout routine. It just takes basic discipline, for losing weight, you need to spend more energy than you take in. So you have a caloric in count, you just count that, you'll lose weight, right? It's not a hard process for most things. You just need to be disciplined. If your goal is worth the sacrifice, that's what you do. If it's not, don't be upset you're not hitting your goals, right?
Right. Exactly.
Be honest with yourself.
And there's the key: be honest with yourself. Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's wrap her up, and thank you very much. Don't be surprised. We may tap you some point for other stuff, including even possibly other interviews with people. And I know we get a chance to talk on a couple of different shows. So I know you've been busy with people tapping on for other shows all the time. But I look forward to seeing actually the foam drills you guys are doing. I've added a lot of foam drills around here. I've added a lot of pad drills, a lot of ladder drills, all that kind of stuff. So I'd love to see some of these response drills and decision making drills that you got going on too.
Yeah, it's just worth it. The more reps you can get in, the easier it is. And I tell people, I don't know, I can't understand how people get good at SCA Florentine without having been good somewhere else. It's just to me, it's mind blowing that you would take, your white belts and have them, go out there and spar a lot, because talk about they want to do spar until they get hit in the beak, right? And so it's that same approach. Like, it's hard to learn fighting when your leg and arm hurts. So
I agree.
With that approach of the simple repetition and the non-painful, and it lets you really hone in on the fighting and not the other aspect of fighting, because a lot of people, once you hit them a few times, they get stick shy. They get that their fighting computer becomes, oh my god, he's got a stick, oh my god, he's got a stick. Oh, that really hurts. And it doesn't help them learn anything. They're spending too much time mentally obsessed about the stick and not about that their hands are out of position or their feet are too long. It takes too much of the mental competition away, because they're like, I don't want to get hit like that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And just going back to that, and I want to make sure everybody understood something Sean said earlier, is like, you talk about that, you're a Florentine person, and for me, you're just a fighter. And that's and everything you just said is, it doesn't matter what we're fighting. You could be fighting glaive, I don't care, right? It's all what you have to do. You're the weapon, not the things in your hand.
Right.
So that's the thing to remember. So everybody, just because you may or may not fight two stick, there is a ton to learn here, and there's a ton of small things here that Sven brought up that we haven't even talked about, including small movement, hand popping, your hand movements, your hands up and down, all of these little things. Listen to the show again if it's somewhere down the line, and you're going to pick up these things as he's telling over again. You'll pick up new things each time you probably listen to it. So thank you very much for giving us a great show tonight. And
thanks for coming.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing the stuff you can throw together for us, and we'll throw it out there for everybody to use. And hopefully we get to talk soon again.
All right. Well, thank you, Graces. I appreciate it.
No problem. So the next week we're looking at Halloween time, and we thought, well, lots of people are going to be doing different stuff. Although this year maybe they're stuck at home. So I attend another show called Great Fights at YouTube. Right now we've been going through kingdom by kingdom and trying to get kind of everything from, where did the kingdom develop out of, what styles it develop out of, who are the big players at the beginning, who are the big players now, what standards are different and stuff like that. But we oftentimes run into a lot of little funny video or some crazy video with soundtracks over the top of them, some incredible fights that end up in weird things, people falling on each other or whatever. So we're going to put a bunch of those weird clips together, and we're just going to have a good night and hang out and talk with the guys from the incredibly funny guys from the show there. It's going to probably be a pretty interactive show. So I'm still debating on how we're going to run that show. We may just open that show like they do and just have everybody come into the Zoom. We'll talk to Vesper about that. It's always a little gamble. We will, we may, we tape shows all here, and I want to tape this one. We don't tend to tape that one too much, only because it's pretty open on how we talk. Sven's been there. He's like, sometimes it's just, hammer people down and make fun of people tonight. Most of the people that are there, those are the ones you're making fun of. But so hopefully it'll be a good time, and I look forward to seeing everybody out there, and maybe make a Halloween a little better for everybody, and then we'll get back to business after that.
Well, Sven, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. It's been great having you. Like I said, I've enjoyed talking to stick with you since we first met all those years ago, and it's been really fun to watch your progress and to watch you apply training methodology in a different way. So really appreciate what you're doing for the evolution of our sport.
I agree.
So thanks for coming, man.
Yep. Vesper, I think we're pretty much wrapping it up. I mean, as usual, the biggest thing we can only say and constantly say to you is thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, and thank you.
Thank you. This wouldn't be possible without you. Well, I'm super excited for next week for Halloween, and that's going to be awesome. So everybody, please tune in. I will post a link to the Coach's Corner after we wrap up tonight. Be sure to go over there and say hello to everybody. Follow them. They're awesome, as you can tell from tonight's show. And hopefully, Duke Sven, we will have you back again in the future sometime. It was great having you here tonight.
All right. Glad to bring my my redneck twang to the show for
Well, gentlemen, have a lovely weekend, and we will see everybody again next week.
All right, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Good night. Have a great weekend.
You too.